let's see here. Then I come over here. Perfect. And we are now officially almost live. Yep, we're live on LinkedIn. So we're good there. YouTube is all good, and Twitter should be good as well. So we are all set. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you for joining us today for a very special episode of Design System Office Hours here with Davy and PJ. We're happy to be hosting. I've got my bowl of popcorn here, so I'm excited to take a seat back and watch you two go. So feel free to take it away, you two.
Usually like to start these with a theme song. So da 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 da. And I usually like watching PJ try to figure this out.
I am completely lost. You said this is a deep cut. This is a deep ass cut.
Nico might know this one. My tune, I'm not classically trained, so my humming.
You don't say. You're not classically trained.
Yeah, this wasn't part of the Art Institute's curriculum.
Okay. All right.
Boxing in.
I'm shocked. First off. Okay. What was it?
That was Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar.
Oh,
I don't
good
know
choice.
who that is.
That's
if
a
you're
great
on
choice.
Twitter, or any of the other social medias that this is streaming on, wherever you get your podcasts, you'd be able to get this. But welcome back to the Design System Office Hours podcast. We have a very special program today, live streaming across all of your favorite platforms. How are you doing, PJ?
I'm doing lovely. How are you?
I'm doing good. This one was a good one that I think came to light when PJ and I met up at the Knapsack Leadership Summit. And one thing that I felt was a little bit of a divisive tune was the topic of design systems and where they should sit. So that is our main topic today, amongst a few other ones. But PJ, what do you think? Where do you think design system teams should sit and thrive?
You know what? I think no matter where they sit, there's problems, right? Like if they sit within the design org, I think it oftentimes gets skewed towards design. If it sits within engineering, the design system skews towards engineering. I've never seen it sit within product, although I've heard about it. So I think no matter where it sits, there's problems. I think more about the way I try to focus on the organizational details of a design system is less of where it sits and who's in charge of it, and who are the folks that are ushering it, and do they understand the needs and the connections of a design system. That can be within engineering, that can be within design. As long as folks understand what design systems are and how to set them up for success, that's what I'm most concerned. You okay, Davey?
I had to close the window. There's some
He was like, I'm leaving.
That's a horrible answer. I'm out.
We got some detractors outside who don't agree.
Get in line. What about you, Davey? Where do you think it should sit?
I mean, I think from my experience, which I think was very unique at Disney Streaming, there's cases for it obviously to sit in design, and I think that was where it initially was brought up. I thought that it was the most successful for us when it sat across another type of horizontal discipline, like design ops.
Yeah, I get it.
Right?
I get that.
You get it, right? And the reason why it should be sitting on a different horizontal plane is that, and we'll touch on this at the back end of the podcast, is quite often our business metrics are different between product design teams and horizontal design teams. Some product design teams, for instance, may have metrics and OKRs based purely on conversion. That may not be exactly what we do. We're serving, our customers are not the direct customers of, say, the product, but our customers are the product designers and the engineers. So we measure things a little differently. I also think this is a completely biased point of view of how I saw things work. When I did work at Disney Streaming and this was under design ops, I felt like we had a bit more power in terms of instilling, I'm going to use the big M word, mandates, instilling mandates and shepherding different parts of the process. Well, while the processes aren't always going to be 100% strict, not fluid, but we did have the ability to pilot different processes, try them out, and really guide people on the whole entirety of the design, product design process and design delivery process. So in the event that we wanted to go do the double diamond process, we could do that. We could appease the product owners. If we wanted to do agile and then work in design systems as like a check-in mechanism, we could do that. There's many different movements that we could influence.
I agree with the horizontal kumbaya of those two teams. I think the one thing I do, now that I think about this a little bit more, I mean, typically designers are out populated by engineers like 10 to 1, 15 to 1. So I always get a little nervous when, 1/10 of the org is running something that's then going to service the other 9/10. So, whatever side it falls on, I think there's a strong responsibility to service both sides. If it's within engineering, it can be really easy just to ignore design because, you're 9 out of 10 of the population. Either way, I think there needs to be a real strong level of discipline to say, like, look, I may not be a developer. I may not fully understand development yet, but I understand that there's a responsibility to service my cross-functional partners. And so therefore I need to understand the development process better. I need to understand how design systems can support developers, and I need to have them providing feedback as much as possible. Either way, you're at risk if you don't understand the other side of the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other, I think, big thing is to really try to figure out where design system teams and maintainers get involved in the product design process. So one thing that I see that is a bit problematic when there's not strong mandates is folks will, I'll use quotations, sometimes they start with the design system, maybe they'll start with it and then detach everything, like using PJ's the plugin that he built. Detach everything. But a lot of times folks engage design system designers like myself at the very end of the process. And the goal for us is to try to shift left a little bit and get them to talk to us a little earlier. Obviously, everyone wants to be included and everyone wants to be involved from the jump. I think from like a headcount and resourcing point of view, that's not necessarily always possible. But if you could talk to us, I would say maybe not 3 days before you plan to hand this thing off or ship this thing, that would be preferable. Like if you're talking to us while you're designing and really trying to figure out, are these components working for us? Can we compose them in a different way? What about if we add these props? What are your thoughts on updating this component API?
One thing I've been thinking about lately, based off of, now that we're heading into the planning season, just how challenging it is for a design systems team and design and product design teams to coordinate what they need for the next planning cycle. It's incredibly unfair to feature designers to say, hey, we haven't designed this thing yet and the PRD isn't really defined, but we're going to need these components. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know what we're going to hear from our customers and what we're going to need to adjust. And then, conversely, as the design systems team, we're not going to be able to just, change direction at a moment's notice based off of insights from the product team. So the thing I've been thinking about is trying to have a design systems team one cycle behind in planning. So y'all go do it, go do your thing. We're gonna use this cycle to understand what patterns have been established. Bring that into the design system. Take the time to understand how to establish a pattern, and then the next cycle we're going to be permeating. We're going to try to propagate those patterns into the code base, and then do the same thing the next cycle. But to try to keep up with feature teams that are moving super fast, where design system teams typically move a little bit more slowly, more deliberately, just doesn't seem compatible. So what I'm trying to do is say, hey, let's be one cycle behind. Y'all do your thing. Now you're not stressed out that you got to check in every minute. You can just go make the magic happen. And then we have processes in place to clean up, any suboptimal situations in the code base from that last planning cycle. And we have the time to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, that seems like an awesome process. Like, I think one wrinkle that I could see, and I've seen this like from the Disney side, is like in most cases we were pretty good about working just in time, so delivering work right before engineering needs it, and then coming back to I don't even like to use the word UI polish because that sort of diminishes it. Like, you're coming back to finish it, to do the thing right. But in terms of that exercise, like if you needed to come back and help the team refactor, how does that work?
Great question. The way we did it at Pinterest, which, mind you, I thought was a horrible idea, and I was very wrong. I was so wrong, was to have contractors come in and replace instances. I remember when engineering leadership suggested that. I said, no, like that doesn't make sense. And it was great. It was a great program that they proposed and spun up. And effectively, we had contractors come in and would find equivalents of our components and then make the changes themselves, because feature teams don't have the time to go back and replace instances for features that they're not even working on. So we just accepted that reality, had folks go in and make those changes, and it was welcomed. It created a lot of focus for both sides of the house. So that's one thing that I'm trying to figure out, how can we make that a program in and of itself, and just kind of bake that into the process, so that if we are one cycle behind, we have those folks come in and make those changes once the patterns and components are established.
That sounds like a great idea. So you're talking about replacing instances, mostly like if it's web, it would be like React, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So because we were only web-based at that time, it was exclusively web-based. So we would find instances of, say, like buttons that aren't actually our button, and we would go through and make those changes, send those PRs to different teams that would then get accepted. Once in a blue moon, maybe 1 out of 100 times, there'd be a regression error. There'd be something where we'd have to talk through it. But 99 out of 100 times, it was just silent, like just automatic fixes. No mess, no fuss, and everyone won.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think another method might be, if you have engineering on call on that team, to go like we have the same thing for both engineering and web. We do about like a 1 week on call. So it works if you have roughly 4 people, or if you have any more than 2 people, it would be doable. Otherwise, you could. I'm just imagining like the SLA that you would have to give like a month maybe, which is completely reasonable. It's not too bad, as long as you fit it within the bounds of like a 6-month period. So that goes to I think the first talking point that I wanted to touch on was the role of design systems team in ensuring design quality and deliverable quality.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
It's tough, and I think it varies by org. So it varies by the level of strictness and mandatedness. That's a Davy term right there. Mandatedness of the system. So when we were a part of the design delivery process and owner of the process at Disney, we upheld a very, very high level, but that was because design system designers were part of the delivery process. We would work with the product designers to help uplift the deliverables, and then work in tandem with them. I would say we would hold hands and work together with them to hand off the process. And I know we don't like to use the word handoff, but let's just not beat around the bush. It was a meeting, things got accepted, we handed stuff off, we talked about it. Obviously, we're going to continue to work on it, but that was because a design system designer was at that table working on that. Now, at Meta, it's a little bit more different. There's hundreds, thousands of designers. They're designing, like as PJ says, like as fast as humanly possible. They're getting stuff design reviewed. It's an opt-in process to talk to us in these different checkpoints. So like in office hours, it's an opt-in. There's no requirement for them to come to office hours. At Disney, because we were part of the process, we made it a requirement for designers to come in and check in for office hours, even if it was a 15-minute thing. Like the best, I think, analogy is it's TSA pre-check. Like, we're gonna get you through. We've checked all your stuff already. Like, you're gonna be set up for success. That's what our thought was. But at Meta, it's an opt-in process, and where I think things stumble is like they come to us when things get rejected, and other XFM partners are asking, "Oh, are you utilizing the design system? Are you making sure that you're utilizing the right tokens?" And then that's like the oh shit moment, and that's right before that oh shit moment is where we would have been able to help them. And you really need, I would say, governance around that, and making sure that we're there at the right time when folks hold us, when folks may hold us accountable. So I think it depends based on like the fidelity or the size and maturity of your org.
Yeah, I don't think, I think design systems can establish a definition of quality. I think that they can provide a set of tools to enable quality experiences, but ultimately you can still create a real low quality experience with a high quality design system. I think quality is something that ultimately is in the hands of the folks that are making the features. And the thing that I've been trying to pitch to folks is that quality takes time, it takes attention, it takes a commitment to maybe hold off on shipping something to get it right. And the way that you can do that is through efficiencies gained. Quality costs money, and design systems can save you that money from an operational standpoint, so that you can commit to taking extra time to make that experience just that much better. That and essentially saying that that extra time you spent was actually still a net positive due to the time that you saved with the design system. That's I've been waxing poetic about Toyota for some time now, but they are hyper focused on reduction of waste and efficiency, and a lot of the times they're reinvesting those cost savings into higher quality parts, or stopping the assembly line if there's an issue, to ensure that they're shipping reliable cars. And so ultimately the company has to decide what they're going to do with that efficiency. They can just pocket the money and still ship a low quality product faster, or they can reinvest in quality. But ultimately it's going to be on the onus of the people shipping the features to deliver a high quality product.
Yeah, one mechanism that I always use, which I think is a very good mechanism, is so I look less at component usage as like upholding design quality. So like if you're not using a component but it's composed of subcomponents, that's fine. It's not really my role to decide how you compose things. It's based on your unique product needs. But where I do feel it's more important is to adhere as high as 100% on token usage of type, color, elevation, that sort of thing. And it's not so we could ensure that you're on the latest meta brand theme. It's to ensure that we could continue to move you forward towards the next theme, or new dark mode, or new Coke mode, or extra ultra accessibility mode. Like once you're in and you're adopting the right things, we're going to be able to bring you along and evolve you.
Yeah, I think that's another good thing to bring up, is that I think a lot of folks say they're concerned about speed, but I would argue that they're really concerned about agility, where they can make quick changes really fast. You can move really fast, but then the minute you have to change like degrees of churn by 1 degree, the car falls apart. But if you design systems enable agility to where, do we want a new icon aesthetic? Okay, great. Like you update the assets, it propagates everywhere. Do you want a new color palette? Okay, propagates everywhere. that's the other thing that design systems, it's not just about efficiency and speed, but it's also agility. And that those two can oftentimes be at odds with each other. You make something super optimized, but it has to go in one direction. That's all it can do. Whereas this, it's both. It can move extremely quickly, but also you can make widespread changes in a fraction of the time and risk that you would otherwise.
I'm going to shift to a more controversial question, which was in terms of where we sit as design system for yourself, a design system manager, design system leader, or a design system maintainer, IC. Where do we sit versus feature designers and folks that work on feature teams? So I asked that based on level of influence on product design. Like how much of that should we have as a design system team?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one. That's another thing we're talking about at the company I work at, and trying to, I think there are distinct differences between system designers and feature designers, but I fear if you define the role too differently, it creates a lack of mobility. If you want to switch over to a feature team and you're being graded on a different assessment, what the hell do you do now? Are you getting dropped a level? Like, what does that? It becomes incompatible, which becomes risky. But they're different. So, like, what the hell do you do? I'm curious. You've been putting a lot of thought in this, Davy. So I'm curious where you've landed on this.
Yeah, so that's exactly right in terms of like the calibration and how we're reviewed, right? And at Meta, where all the product designers, including design system designers, are graded at the same level. Whether I agree with that or not, I'm too low level to really argue that. I think we should be graded differently because we work in different modalities. So one specific one is a large portion of our job is both education and support. A typical product designer doesn't have to do that, but I would say they may have a different lens on that, where they're probably working more with user research, and we're not working as much with user research. So it's a little bit of like, if you're looking at like a product table, there's different check boxes on different roles, but they're slightly different. I think a lot of design system designers want to be product designers and product design journalists. I'm gonna call myself a product design journalist, right, PJ? We want to be product design journalists, but I think at the end of the day, we should allow product designers to work more independently, develop their point of view of their product, because they have the best knowledge of that. And we come in as an enablement team to help them spell out how to use these in the best way possible with our best practices, how to ensure that this is the most accessible pattern that is used as widely as possible, that sort of thing.
I do think if you are going to differentiate, I think it probably is only responsible to provide some translation, meaning, so you're a feature designer who wants to work on design systems. Here's how the skills translate. Here's how they map. Here's what you'd probably want to ditch. Here's what you'd want to add. And because, yeah, I think some of the best team members to add to a design system team are internal transfers as opposed to hiring outward. So how the hell do you do that? Are you providing an open door to those folks? Like that, it doesn't seem fair if you're not. So I think that's an important part of it. If they are going to be different, you need to explain how to transfer over either side.
Yeah, this goes back to like the RACI model and understanding like where we're slotted in, what our roles and responsibilities are, and like as new people come in, how we could up level them to gain new responsibilities, specifically transfers. So we have that's a big thing at Meta, folks transferring to different teams and internal mobility. So that's 100%. We have a few more that we wanted to go through, and then we could go through any questions if need be. So how can we, as design system maintainers and cool folks, streamline communication with engineering?
I mean, geez, there's so many different ways.
What's our top 3?
Well, I mean, I would say the most important one is if you're creating a common language among design and engineering, that's just the obvious one, where, you know, the Figma component or whatever design tool of your choice component maps directly to the code equivalent in terms of how it's designed, how it's structured, how it's named is going to make it much easier. I mean, geez, something as simple as just naming the damn thing.
You would think it's simple, but not everybody does it.
No,
though, right?
That is going to help that process. I would argue if you can describe a feature in a sentence, then you've succeeded. If you can say, like, we need a button here that's primary and medium and has a label of this, like, if you can get to the point where you can have features shipped consistently and through writing a sentence, then success. If you have to create a prototype for every single one, like, maybe for a simple feature, maybe there needs to be a little bit more judging and finessing of how all your touch points map together.
Yeah, the component naming thing I think is very, very important. It sounds like it's like duh, right? But it's not like that all the time. And even to the point where if you could get it as close as possible, so if you could even get the casing the same, like that's the goal is to eliminate confusion with engineering. Like you want to be able to type the thing. What the F am I looking for? Type the thing. Found it. If there's any ambiguity, there's going to be folks are going to start guessing. They're either going to guess or they're going to do some sort of onion skinning thing, which is a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah. I would say where I've landed on why this doesn't happen is not because it's difficult, it's because it's boring. That's like, it's boring. We got more important things to work on. I don't want to rename stuff. But guess what? Like, quality is boring. A lot of the things that lead to quality products are really, really boring and super detailed. But enough of those adding up together leads to a well-structured, rigorous product. And so I think that's where some of it comes from. It's just like, oh, we have better things to do. I don't want to do this, but it's really important.
I remember having a debate, not argument, a debate with a designer on a partner team where they asked us, like, why do we name this a certain way? Like, this is how engineers name it. I was like, yeah. That's exactly right. You guessed it. And our goal is to get it as close as the React deliverable that you see in the documentation. Like when you're looking at design documentation, you're looking at if it's in the form of Zeppelin or if it's in the form of like a doc site, the things need to be named the same. So you could see like the code equivalent, and then you could see the design equivalent. And in terms of like even the under the hood, like compiling these pages, like you're plugging these things in manually, or you're utilizing like a script to do this. So when things don't sync up, there's a level of confusion. So he was a little bit questionable of why we did this, but I think after we gave him the same sort of explanation, he was cool with that.
It's just common decency, right? Like, set your peers up for success. And a real simple one is just to use the same words. If we start changing language and calling things differently, it's going to create confusion. Just think about, if we started calling computers Biggly Borps, people have no idea what the hell you're talking about. And
I got a few Biggly Borps.
Yeah.
I'll go with this one other one so we could get to the last favorite topic. But I think helping with, I hate using the word framework because that's a super loaded topic, but providing a template, I think that's a better way. Providing a template or a mechanism or a way to present work to engineering that is consistent across the org. So engineers aren't reviewing deliverables that wildly look different across your dozens or hundreds of designers. So that's as easy as creating consistency in a Zeppelin project, or creating like a Figma template to present work, or creating a specific way that you hand stuff off in Jira or Asana. All of those things help predictability and engineers find things as quick as possible.
Yep.
Yeah, no gaps there. So my favorite topic, which is PJ's favorite topic, not really my favorite topic because I deal with this on a day-to-day basis, is how to show business value to design and engineering leadership.
All right, Davy, go.
It's a big one.
Tell us how.
Well, I know there's PJ's been working on something. I'll plug him because that's the friend that I am. So if you go to pjonori.com/design systems business case with dashes in between. I think you could Google it too. PJ's been working on a web app, I would say, or a deck to help present design systems and work on getting buy-in from folks.
I mean, we do it a lot, right? So
all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a biannual thing.
Yeah. So, I think the paradox is that design systems have the potential to create so much value that people won't believe you once you say it, because you don't just create a 30% efficiency, but that's very attainable within design systems. And once you hit a 30% efficiency with the salaries that designers and engineers make, you're talking about some serious money, and the amount of revenue per employee each one of those folks create. If you're essentially creating net new headcount due to the efficiency, meaning if you had 200 engineers and they're working 30% faster, it's fuzzy math, but that equates to 260 engineers. And if each one of them are creating $500,000 in revenue on average, based off of the company revenue and number of employees, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And so then you get into the funny thing of like, I don't understand what the value is. That's way too much value. You're crazy. And that's the paradox, but there's immense value, and that's just efficiency. So what I'm trying to do is equate to money, because businesses like money. There's all these other more subjective value adds, which are, faster onboarding, increased, consistency within the product, higher quality, happier engineers and designers. There's all these other things that are a little bit more subjective and not necessarily, there's not as instant of a through line to business outcomes as efficiency. So what I'm typically doing is saying, here's all the value of design systems. Let's just focus on efficiency. Here's the industry average, where we've kind of settled in terms of efficiency gains you can see from a mature design system. Now I'm going to cut that in half. Let's say we're horrible at our job and can only get 50% of the industry average. You're still going to get, and here's how many people we have, this is how much net headcount you get. You're still in the black by unbelievable sums, and that's just efficiency. So if we underperform by 50% and only account for efficiency, you're still seeing a huge business value add from design systems. But the challenge is, okay, now you're on the hook to measure efficiency. How do you do that? That's a whole other subject. But I do think you are on the hook to measure things as much as possible and translate over to direct business value. If you're fighting the fight for like better quality, better consistency, well, how does that equate to business value? That's where it gets a little bit more tricky. So what I'm trying to do is just as the quickest path to revenue and operational health, that's where I'm typically going.
Yeah, the quickest path to, like in our case, likely it's the quickest path to launching either the full thing or an experiment and start, lining the pockets of us, right? Not really, but lining the pockets of the stakeholders. Like that's what they're concerned about. I would say a more forward-thinking one that we like to lean on is reduction of tech debt. That's been, I think, a topic that's been going around too. Is We could either measure efficiency by fixing tech debt. So a lot of us with design systems that have been mature and maybe adopted or adopted incorrectly, what gains can we do by fixing these? Another sort of lever that we like to put is, especially with the different accessibility acts that are coming. We have a European Accessibility Act that's going to be hitting like a year from now. We like to leverage that in terms of tech debt as well, as like we're going to be able to make sure that we're WCAG AA compliant on all of these different flows by fixing 1, 2, 3, 4 kabillion components, and this is like the timeline to do that. So different lens of looking at it a little bit at the back end of it with something that's launched. But yeah, PJ has been speaking some great thoughts about this.
I don't know about great, but I'm just trying to. I mean, part of the why I made it public is to just vet whether these things are actually make sense. Funny enough, I was at my sister-in-law's for a family get together, and my brother-in-law, nephew is an accountant, and I'm like, hey, can you come here? I got to talk to you about like something I'm working on, and like I'm trying to vet how accurate these numbers are and how to just fortify it to make sure it's legit. Because when I look at these numbers, they seem a little bonkers to me. But I think it does speak to the value of design systems and just how much return you can get.
Yeah, I'll add one more piece onto this too. Is like it's also a predictor for planning and like hiring and resourcing as well. So utilizing this framework to figure out like if we're able to hire one contractor for, let's say, 12 months, how much can we help speed up or clean up the work that has been done. I think that's an extremely solid method, and yeah, hopefully like you all can check that out, and we'll keep talking about business value because it's like top of mind for us daily. Hit over 35 minutes. Usually we wrap up. There's a theme song right now, but we'll kick it back to Nico to see if there's like any burning questions.
Yeah, we do. We first off, we have some love for Bibli Borps, so I think that's probably going to catch on, PJ. You're going to take over, make the next generation of computers call them Bibli Borps. So good things are happening here. We do have one question on LinkedIn from Austin Lin. It's more of a question about what the typical day of a design systems professional looks like. He asks also, what kind of advice would you give to any junior designers that sort of want to break into the field? Because according to him, it seems like design system teams are generally small and rarely hire early career people, even people familiar with component and variable techniques. So what advice do we have for Mr. Lin here?
Davy, you first.
I'll start off, and you could touch on like the apparent gatekeeping that's happening, like which we've talked about. So yeah, I think the best thing to do if you've there's a lot of folks that come in as product design generalists that transition to design systems. So I think the key is getting into a product design role where you see that there's an appetite to work in this sort of manner. So it's not merely about working with components, but it's a program. So it's an appetite to either improve design quality, work more efficiently, speed up, work smarter, all of those sort of things. And like in my position at Disney, we were building components and using like I would say a lowercase d design system. It was a UI kit. But we built in the buy-in to utilize that thing. And then I was able to carve out my own role and be the first design system designer. So a lot of times you're working as a team of one, or a team of maybe one, and then sometimes allocated engineering resources. So I think if you're comfortable being in that sort of role, being comfortable with advocating for your work and presenting it both horizontally and upwards, I think those are the main skills that I would say that you need.
I think a lot of people get shocked when they start working on a design systems team and realize how little design and engineering work there is on components. There's a lot of work in terms of support. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of writing. There's a lot of education, understanding the psychology of people to understand how to support, how to get everyone swimming in the same direction. And I think that's a system shock for a lot of folks that like, why am I not in Figma all day? Why am I never in Figma? And I think that can be a big, just a big learning opportunity that a lot of this is outside of the daily work of a typical designer. I think one reason why older or more senior folks are working within design systems is because of that. There's more seasoning, and we need someone a little bit more well-rounded, and able to deal with real stressors within design systems. There's a lot getting thrown at folks, and especially early on in one's career, it's going to be easy to be overwhelmed. So I think junior designers and engineers absolutely can be within the design system, but I think they need to be insulated by folks who are a little bit more senior that are able to absorb the questions and all the factors that can be an overwhelming factor just from a psychological standpoint. Things that I typically suggest is learn about systems thinking. It's a whole other area of study. Not that I studied it in school or anything. I just happened to be born at a time that aligned up right to being in design systems. But there are books around systems thinking. I think that's really important. I think learning how to write and communicate effectively is really important because that's going to be a large part of the work. And those will benefit you irregardless. But I think shifting your mindset around, it's not just about designing components, but it's about designing how people operate and work together, probably more so than the components.
I love that answer. That was fantastic. I hope, Austin, you get some good career insights from that. PJ and Davy are stepping into your mentorship era, entering your mentorship era, mentor roles. I do have one final question. I really liked PJ what you just said about designing how people work together. And earlier you both had mentioned, sort of on the same vein, that a lot of times quality is boring. A lot of times this stuff is perceived as boring. How do you convince other people on your team to do the boring stuff? Like, what are some things that you've done before to get buy-in from other people to understand that it's important?
That's a tough one. That's an ongoing pressure. So I think if designers on our team are tied to specific areas, so like if, let's say, they're beyond passionate, but let's say that they enjoy working on data visualization, they have a passion for it, they've been working on it for some time, I think they'll feel more invested to come back and continue to refactor that. Or if like they're interested in feedback components, say like toast and messaging, then like you assign that to them. I think when it's a smaller team or a super large team, I think it becomes difficult because it's like PJ said, it's boring work. So we have to set aside time for folks to do that. So either it's on-call time, or we establish like fix-a-thon. So like beyond, I would say, like we're trying to flip it, and we don't have time to hack because there's so much shit to fix, right? So we need to establish time to fix things, and that's been an extremely positive mechanism across our teams to set aside a week to do that sort of thing.
I think it needs to be incentivized. I think ultimately it needs to be incentivized and defined. So one thing I hear a lot within the industry, no specific company, is we want to improve quality and craft. Well, what's the definition of quality and craft? Yeah, like, and that's tough, right? Objectively defining what quality is and breaking it down, dissecting it, and saying these are the factors of quality, these are the precursors of quality, this is how we measure quality. That is incredibly difficult, but I think we're not setting up anyone for success to say we're holding you to deliver high quality products, but we're not telling you what quality is. We'll get into the review and we'll tell you whether it's quality or not, which sucks. It's like
flip of a coin.
It's like a rat maze. And so I think we need to get to the point where quality is defined so in such a detailed manner to where someone's going to go into a review and say like, I know that this is going to do well, or I'm about to get slaughtered in this review because I know it's not hitting these specific factors of quality. And then in terms of incentivization, you know, I think a lot of things that I see folks getting incentivized for, you know, in like in promotion cases or in performance reviews is they ship this new feature. They created this new technology that was added to the code base. What I don't hear is like they removed a bunch of stuff or they refined this thing. It's just new stuff. And that's, you know, new typically isn't going to be as good, right? It takes a few versions to make it better. And so are we incentivizing someone to remove stuff from a feature or to just spend time improving something? And it may not necessarily have the same metric bumps as a new feature, but it's improving the overall quality. I think that's the other difficult thing is that quality is typically horizontal. It's not specific to one feature. And if your only focus is on a feature and we're only incentivizing you to work on a feature, that's going to be difficult to uphold quality across the product, especially consistently. So a lot of it just comes down to how we're working and how we're paying people, like what we're paying people for. And there's a great quote by Charlie Munger that's, you know, he says, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." And I thought that was such a great quote. I could not have said it better, but that really is it. We are incentivizing people to do what's currently happening. And then we're wondering like, why is it happening? Well, that's why it's happening.
I love that. Very cool. Thank you both very much for your input on all of that. There is one very small last question from @DavyOWhite on X now. Aside from this lovely podcast that you two have, what are some other resources for learning further about design systems? Do you all have any favorite books, any people to follow, anybody else?
Davey, what do you think?
I would say, so our friend of the program, Dan Mall, we're friends of his program as well. He has a new book. Let me find the name of it. So he has a new book. If you search for him, Design That Scales, that's on Rosenfeld Media. There's a few books that are design system related on Amazon that are really good. I know Yesnia from Shopify has a good book about design systems. That's from A Book Apart. Those are folks that we've been in contact with and have been following for quite some time. I think from just pure like knowledge gathering, like YouTube's been really beneficial for us because we're able to not only like see other folks that are like-minded, but we're able to plug into talks. So even talks like these, like the Zeppelin talks, Zeppelin conferences, like those are posted on there. We've been involved with a conference called the Into Design Systems that happened last week. Those clips are also posted on YouTube as well. But there's also like a ton of stuff on Twitter and on X. So there's a thriving design systems community there. So we're both involved there. So I feel free to look us up there. But yeah, the combination of YouTube and X, I think has been really good.
I also think don't rely on us or like anyone, right? Like I think a big part of design systems is it's a way of thinking. And I think the best way to improve your way of thinking is you person thinking through it, coming up with a point of view, pressure testing it, going through that process and learning it yourself. Hearing something and saying like, you should do this. That's great information to store in your brain, but like, why do that? What's the pros of it? What's the cons of it? Not going through that process, you're missing all the important bits that got to that conclusion. So, and all of us dummies, went through that process too, and we have all sorts of flaws. So like, don't take our word for it. I really do think it's go through the process on yourself and come to a better conclusion than any of us have come to.
I love that. Inspiring the next generation of design system people to rise up, do this way of thinking. But I appreciate you both very much. I'm going to throw it back to you, Davy, for any outros, anything you'd like to plug, and your last theme song. Very excited to hear.
Oh, usually the theme song is something that is loaded, but we'll add that in post-production when we post this on our stream. So thank you to Nico, Zeppelin, Omelet for having us. Like if you want to follow us some more, you can find us Design System Office Hours on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of your favorite places that you listen.
Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much. Until next time, we'll see you later, and take care. See ya.